Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Ben. I'm the first generation nurse, and I have a special guest today that will tell us about their unique healthcare experience. Today, I will be interviewing George. He is in a unique healthcare field, and he's going to share his experience with us today. Okay, George, go ahead. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience, and how you found out about your current role.
All right, so I'm George. I am 27 years old, and I am a certified radiologic technologist. I worked as a transporter at my local hospital for about 2 years, and then I transferred into the radiology department as a tech assistant or tech aide. That position requires no specific certifications. It's just on the job training. They typically choose people who are already in X-ray school, but there was a need for more assistance right before COVID, and even so during COVID. So I did that tech assistant job for about 4 years, and in that time frame, I ended up going to X-ray school, finished that, and now, as of May of this year, I am a registered X-ray technologist.
That's awesome, George. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit more about the education. You said you needed to go to X-ray school. So what does that consist of?
So X-ray school at typically any community based college is 2 years.
Okay.
Now I applied to my community college for like more than once, and it's very competitive. They tend to use like a points-based system with the application, and you're competing with a lot of individuals, community-based, depending on also how big the population is around where you live at. So I ended up going private institution. So I went to a private college that was only 16 months versus 2 years. And my colleague at the time, when I was working at the hospital as a tech assistant, they told me that X-ray school was very challenging, and if you're going to do it in less than 2 years, it's probably going to be a lot more challenging. And that it was exactly what happened. But since I was already working as an assistant, I had my coworkers to really help me out through school and all of that. So X-ray school for me was 16 months. That consisted of Monday through Friday, didactic on-campus education, and then we would go out during clinical, just like any other medical program or academy. We do on-base, on-campus education, and then we go out for a couple weeks to maybe 2 months as well on for clinical experience as well. So where I went to school was we did a month, a class for each month. So the classes were 1 month long. And then our clinical time was 2 months long. So I would go to clinical Monday through Friday for 2 months straight. And then after that, I would go back on campus to start my next little class there.
Wow, that sounds intense.
Yeah, it was fun though.
That's good. So what about Radiologic Technologist do you think sets it apart from other healthcare professions?
So radiology is a very specific like education or job in itself. We don't really get a sense of like a broad like education. It's very honed in on a specific like skill set. So a lot of people would say that we are like the first eyes and ears of like what's going on with the patient clinical wise, because when we scan them in a CT or an MRI or even as simple as an X-ray, we are able to see exactly like what could possibly be wrong with them, and we are trained over with experience and even a little bit in school of how to proceed with knowing a particular pathology or something wrong with the patient that needs urgent attention. So we're the first people to kind of like get the ball rolling and call their nurse or call their physician assigned to them and tell them, hey, listen, I think that this is very urgent.
Mm-hmm.
We can put it in stat. A radiologist will interpret the image or the scan, and we'll start the ball rolling on the measures that need to be taken for the patient.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's crazy, but that's really awesome. So, what is
Yeah.
your least favorite thing about radiology technologist?
Well, as a new student, as a new
Mm-hmm.
graduate, a lot of people would say what we call BEs. They're barium enemas. Those are a very messy exam, but it's still a really valuable exam for our patients. So besides that, I would say really the amount of high pace environment that you
Mm-hmm.
can be put into. So where I work at is adults and pediatrics.
Wow.
So we have two different hospitals that are connected, and we're responsible for pediatrics and adults. So we have to really learn and educate ourselves on both populations, and it can be hectic going back and forth, and you have to really catch yourself and really remind yourself that for pediatrics we do exams differently. We have to tailor to pediatrics and basically do a little bit less radiation per se. We
Mm-hmm.
have our different techniques that we use and adapt for body habitus and all those different kind of things.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, I love peds. I love the kiddos, and they're
Mm-hmm.
special because you do have to, like, with anything, you have to change the dosages. I'm sure there's the same thing with radiology, like how much radiation they can be exposed to. So that's awesome to know that you guys even have to do that as well.
Yes.
So, what type of specialties are there in your field, and which ones are you considering?
So there's quite a few different modalities within radiology. Of
Hmm.
course, you have X-ray, you have CAT scan or CT, MRI. So MRI is just magnets and all that. There's no radiation or ionizing radiation in MRI.
Hmm.
They use the magnetic field and radio frequencies.
Hmm.
So for ionizing radiation, we have X-ray, CT, DEXA, cath lab.
Hmm.
They utilize a C-arm, I believe, in cath lab. They use radiation too, and then interventional radiology is also a really good modality to go into. It's very intense, I was told, and it's a little bit more high stress than most of the other modalities, but it's very good if you want to take that next step in your education and
Hmm.
really be a solid, good technologist.
Hmm.
That is a really good modality to go into is interventional radiology. Now, for myself, since I worked as a tech aide for 4 years, I
Hmm.
was working in CT and
Hmm.
MRI, and those two modalities really sparked the interest of going to radiology school
Hmm.
myself. So I would love to go into CT and MRI pretty soon, but I need to still kind of hone in on my skills as a fresh graduate.
Hmm.
So it's good to get a solid foundation in X-ray, kind of see the anatomy, kind of see how all these different things can happen into a patient
Hmm.
with X-rays. Because CT we utilized very much more different planes of field of views and all that.
Hmm.
So it's almost three-dimensional instead of like a 2D X-ray. We
Hmm.
look at different cross-sectional anatomy within the patient. So that takes a little bit of rewiring your brain to kind of look at all those cross-sectional views of the patient. So
Hmm.
that's really exciting for me. So I'm super excited to start that real soon.
That's awesome. It sounds like you're really passionate about it. So, and you explained, why it sets it, what sets those modalities apart from the rest. I do have a question for you, and I don't know if you know, um, do radiologic technologists, do they do radiation therapy?
So yes, you
Okay.
can, but to be a licensed radiation therapist,
Hmm.
there is a separate schooling that you have to go into. They have their own separate certification exam
Hmm.
in addition to your X-ray exam or credentials,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't have to do X-ray first. You can
No.
just go ahead and already apply to a radiation therapy program,
Okay.
and they'll put you through and they'll get you the education you need, and then prepare you to sit for the radiation therapist exam.
I see. Awesome. Because I have a lot of students asking for that, and um, you know, I didn't know if they were separate. If they were separate, because when you do look at the board, I think it's the same board. Do you know if it's the same board or no?
I do know
No.
it's a very different type of board.
Okay.
So all the modalities for
Mm-hmm.
like radiology,
Mm-hmm.
they go through the ARRT,
Mm-hmm.
American Radiologic Registered Technologist.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the society that accredits and certifies individuals within radiology.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the general radiographer license, which is what I took,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have add-ons to your X-ray
Mm-hmm.
certification, like CT and
Mm-hmm.
MRI.
Yeah.
But with radiation therapy, that is I believe it's a very different
Okay.
exam all in itself.
Okay.
You would have to take a very different board exam for that.
Awesome.
Because yeah, radiation therapy is a lot more. There's a lot more education to that when compared to a general X-ray
Mm-hmm.
technologist.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, George.
You're
So
welcome.
now a little bit about you. So now that we know a little bit about you, can you tell me what excites you about being in your field, and what are your long-term plans for yourself?
Okay, so what excites me the most is really getting to know my patients. I'm a pretty fun, bubbly person when I'm working. I try not to be super serious or super boring per se. I'm always happy. I'm always laughing with my patients. So I really love that personal connection with them. That's what excites me to go to work every day. I could have a really busy, stressful day, but as long as I'm around people and I'm around patients, my happiness does not come down. Like I do not like that doesn't bother me at all. So that I really like. I like that personal connection with patients. I like seeing them progress and be able to be discharged and healthier than they came in. So I love that. Also, the technology that we use is really is exciting. There's always something new to learn every day, and is it, with technology, there's always going to be a new X-ray machine, a new X-ray portable, new stuff to learn. Even like the system itself, like how we utilize like PACS and our imaging and stuff like that. It's really cool to like always know like there's always something new to learn. So
Mm-hmm.
if you ever feel like you're like complacent or you're getting too comfortable, simply just go in there and see what's new with radiology, and there's always some new article being written up
Mm-hmm.
from physicians and radiologists, and it's really interesting to kind of like educate yourself on the new stuff that we can learn. And what I like really want to aim for is to get my CT license,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully MRI as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I really hone in on my skills with each of those different modalities, I'll be dual certified in different modalities and go ahead and be a travel technologist, just like a travel nurse, because we have the same traveling capabilities as nurses do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's super exciting to just go and for 3 months at a different hospital and do X-rays and CTs there at a different state. And in order to do that, you're going to have to really be a pretty decent X-ray tech already
Mm-hmm.
and know how to work all these different machines, because there's different brands of machines. You have Siemens, you have GE, you have what's another one? I don't know if Kodak is still in business, but I think Kodak's like old. Toshiba, maybe? I'm not really sure. I just know the two main ones, Siemens
Mm-hmm.
and GE, or General Electric. They both make X-ray and CT and MRI machines. So to be a travel tech, you're going to have to pretty much know how to work those different systems as well. And it comes you're trained when you first go in at a different hospital or a different clinic, but
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty intimidating at first, but it's the reward and the accomplishment, like self-accomplishment, I think outweighs for myself, outweighs the stress of like the unknown, you know?
That's awesome, George. George, I have a question for you. So everybody knows how nurses have to document a lot. Do radiologic technologists also have a lot of charting and documenting? Just
Oh,
so
yeah.
our viewers can know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So we do, I wouldn't say we do as extensive charting as
Hmm.
nurses, definitely not. But we do our own documentation within the patient's chart. So whenever a patient comes down for a fluoro case where we're administering some sort of oral contrast and we have the patient under a fluoro machine, we have to document the dosage of radiation. We have to document the time of the exam, how much time the patient was under radiation. And we also have to document the amount of imaging that we do, the amount of contrast that was administered. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. And not just that stuff we document. We document anything that went wrong with the procedure, any new symptoms that might we need to alert the nurse for. So things like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So I know this wasn't part of like the questions, but I do have another question for you. So what is one thing that you weren't expecting when you started like radiologic technology school? Like what's one thing that you didn't know that they did that now you're like, wow, I can't believe they do that and I'm doing this now?
So for myself, I did not really know the amount of fluoro cases I would be doing. I really thought that an X-ray technologist would just do X-rays and go to the OR and operate the CR machine a lot. But working at a hospital, we do a lot of fluoro, and that is a lot more of a longer process than just shooting a quick X-ray of like the chest or extremities in the emergency room or in our department. Fluoro cases involve me, an X-ray technologist. We usually have another coworker who's also another X-ray tech help us during the fluoro case. We have the radiologists come in and do their part as well. And some of the fluoro cases, we also need a radiology nurse. So we have nurses that work strictly in radiology. They are educated on most of our exams that we do. They are the nursing aspect of each radiology case. So they're in there a lot of times with us too in fluoro cases. So we do a lot of fluoro cases, and I wasn't expecting to do so many through that, because a lot of times we have to be sterile for some of those. We have to maintain a sterile field. We have to do a lot more patient care than just like a regular X-ray. So that takes a lot more practice, a lot more education. Make sure you keep up with your education on that. Different protocols that we have to keep reminding ourselves of as well. So I like it. It's fun, but not expected.
Perfect. All right, George, for our last question, what changes do you hope to make in the world of healthcare, and what role do you think you might play within those changes?
I consider myself a really empathic person, so I tend to vibe with a lot of different people, and I can sense, really quickly that maybe this patient is having a really bad day, and I try to be very empathic with them. I wouldn't consider myself a really emotional person, but I really like to keep that good patient morale going, the good patient care skills going, and I just really would love to keep on being, a happy person and being a person that patients can really trust and be comfortable with talking to. And as for like the different general like special populations that we run into all the time with hospital care and healthcare in itself, there's a lot of new education that's going along with the LGBTQ community as well. there's little education on, giving quality patient care to members of the LGBT community that
Mm-hmm.
may not identify as their assigned gender.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times their members of that community feel very nervous coming into the healthcare and
Mm-hmm.
being misgendered or getting care that may not align with what they believe in.
Mm-hmm.
So myself being a member of the LGBT community, I really
Mm-hmm.
want to educate my fellow coworkers
Mm-hmm.
and other patients about that particular subject in
Mm-hmm.
healthcare. I really do believe that it needs to be addressed
Mm-hmm.
and further educated on as
Mm-hmm.
well, because they are a part of our community and
Mm-hmm.
they deserve the same amount level of patient care that we give everybody else as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I really hope to be an ally towards that and hopefully do my part in educating and continuing giving patient care to those members as well.
That's awesome, George. I've known you from taking Anatomy 1 and 2 together. So I've always seen that compassionate side of you, and I know that your patients, both little kids to the elderly, are really going to enjoy you, and you're advocating for a group, like you said, that doesn't get represented often, and maybe is not getting the quality of care that they deserve. Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, George, thank you so much for your time today. It was awesome catching up with you and just discussing your role. I really didn't know anything about Radiologic Technologist, but now I know more. I see how impactful you are, and even within your role, like you're advocating, which is awesome. And I think that's what healthcare needs.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ben. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Awesome. Thank you, George.
All right.